Oh, hi.
Movies.
Hey, after 21 years, there's a new Lord of the Rings movie out in time for Christmas.
That's good.
It's a prequel rushed out to allow New Line Cinema and Warner Brothers to retain the rights.
Ooh, that's bad.
But it's a feature-length anime directed by auteur Kenji Kamiyama.
That's good.
The 2.5-hour movie is extrapolated from 3.5 pages and an appendix at the end of Return of the King.
That's bad.
Can I go now?
Lord of the Rings War of the Rohirrim is, to put it mildly, a frustrating experience. Now, it doesn't succumb to feeling wholly like a soulless product. I mean, the art design is exquisite, the landscapes are genuinely breathtaking and worthy of New Zealand, and almost all the voice actors bring nothing but their A-game. If you really desperately wanted to see Middle-earth as an anime, it does fulfill that curiosity, but it just never rises to feeling like a story that needed to be told. Taking place in the Kingdom of Rohan about 183 years before the mainline trilogy, the story centers on Hera, a young woman who, in the aforementioned Appendix A, is mentioned exactly once as an unnamed woman who the arrogant Lord Freka tried to hitch with his son Wolf. This isn't a minus so far. We have had great stories, including films, derived from the absolute thinnest of folklore. Look at no less than the Bible for many such examples. Enoch gets mentioned in the book of Genesis as having been, quote, taken by God, unquote, and that one line spawned, amongst much speculation, a whole book in its own right that even became canon for a select minority of Jews and Christians. Now, given how The Lord of the Rings is basically the closest thing contemporary nerdom has had to a holy book, having an unnamed character in a Tolkien text be used as fodder for expansion to its own epic just makes sort of sense. At least we're not trying to milk a whole mini-series out of it. With credit to the filmmakers, they really do try to show their homework, and at first glance, it gets a lot right. Rohan is correctly shown as a kingdom obsessed with its horses. The characters and armors are full of exquisite details that I'm sure some Tolkien fanboy or another can pick up on, and the dialogue is written and performed in naturalistic English with absolutely none of that hollow anime dub sound we're so used to.
Speak!
He killed them all. I saw. He tore them apart with his bare hands.
Who did?
Helm Hammerhand.
The story proper kicks off when King of Rohan, Helm Hammerhand, holds a council, which is unceremoniously crashed by a renegade vassal, the aforementioned Lord Freka, and his son Wolf. Wolf shoots his shot, and Hera rebukes him. So Freka insults the king, his family, and probably the horse he rode in on too. Helm says to take it outside like gentlemen, and Helm, mind you, has the name Hammerhand for a reason. So, to the surprise of nobody, he one-shots Freka dead, and Wolf subsequently vows revenge. What follows then is a mix of politicking and brutal siege. Wolf recruits enemies from around the land to sack the kingdom and take control. Now, no points for guessing that Hera is left as a lone surviving child of her father, and she comes off as a spunky yet demure daughter, which is a bit of a mixed bag. More on that in a minute. There's a fair bit of dialogue made in the film about how Freka, Wolf, and their entourage are descended from the Dunlendings, who, as more serious Tolkienites than myself might note, were the wild men who are allowed a seat at the council due to what amounts to political convenience and historical happenstance. Yet, to the movie's detriment, you aren't made to feel that exclusion. You aren't shown anything about why these guys might feel like they've been set aside when they're acting like jerks the whole time. Director Kenji Kamiyama is a man who likes to have morally ambiguous characters, so this should play to his strengths. In fact, according to sources I've read, he was explicitly intrigued by this aspect. Yet, the script, which is a mix of a story by Jackson mainstays Jeffrey Addis, Will Matthews, and Philippa Boyens, along with a rewrite done by relative newcomers Phoebe Gittins and R.T. Papagiru, don't really sell this as much as they could have. So what you're wound up left with is Wolf coming off as a one-dimensional heavy who is mad the girl he likes doesn't want him and so wants revenge, and that's why it's a good reason to kill a family. Okay, I mean, it's good to have a bad guy that's bad, don't get me wrong. It's just frustrating that Hera is such a goody two-shoes about this whole thing. Here comes a guy talking smack and not taking no for an answer, yet for having been a girl who can come up with plans on the fly and has a fairly decent fight IQ, she's somehow unable to tell him to buzz off or, heaven forbid, just behead him because of this weird subplot they added in about Hera and Wolf having been childhood friends. Yes, we get that battered and bruised Osarajimi anime trope in a Lord of the Rings movie. What makes this worse is that it doesn't really go anywhere beyond a couple flashbacks and hackneyed symbolism involving scars. The plot just relies too much on characters not making critical decisions, And something in the storytelling just lacks the gravitas to make us accept the lack of these decisions. Like too often, characters will see their friends in mortal danger and stand aside with mouths agape like a shonen anime, instead of, I don't know, doing something about it. Or later in the film, a key figure goes missing, and our heroine goes to pursue him. In the frigid snow, with enemies just outside the gate, mind you, carrying nothing more than the clothes on her back and maybe a puny little dagger. So what should come off feeling like a heroic medieval tragedy comes off as just people being stupid for the sake of pushing a plot along. It's not all bad though, it really isn't. Look, I'm honestly not much of a Tolkienist, and the film does take liberties with even its sparse source material, but it actually is quite faithful to a lot of it as well, and the animation is honestly worth the price of admission alone. It's not quite true theatrical quality with some rough CG in spots and a certain jerkiness in the motion, but it is full of intricate detail that does merit being seen on a big screen to soak it all in. The action scenes in particular are wonderful to look at. They're full of interesting choreography, even when huge armies are throwing down against each other, and they don't devolve into just having CG, armies bashing against each other. In particular, the scenes involving Helm Hammerhand in action are a huge highlight. His preference for bare-knuckle combat gets done justice. I mean, for how flawed this movie can be, it's worth checking out just for those scenes alone, no joking. On the other hand, his children. You kind of wonder what sort of woman Helm had to have married to sire such inept children. His sons Heleth and Hamma basically become plot devices to get killed off so Hera could then put on her big girl pants and show how awesome she is. Yet she's, as mentioned, this awkward mix of Hollywood girl power and Japanese waifu. She can hold her own in a fight, and those fights do look awesome, mind you, but she seems to lack agency and decisiveness in her own story, as things just seem to happen around her. Thankfully, those things tend to be pretty nice to look at, just that, okay, look, indulge me here. Watching this, what I couldn't help think of was, of all things, Marguerite Schoen's portrayal of Kriemhild in 1923's Die Nibelungen, and how a film that is literally a century old is able to believably show a woman actually being strong in a fantasy setting, kicking ass, taking names, and politicking with the best of them. Granted, that film also leans on a lot of arbitrary nonsense happening, but the scope and scale manages to give it a weight where we can just get swept up in it and not think too hard about it. I mean, hell, did anybody go see Fellowship of the Ring thinking that Sauron would win by the end of Return of the King? I sure doubt it, but we all took it in because everything had oomph. Now, it's hard to say what makes War of the Rohirrim lack that oomph. I think it's safe to say that fast-tracking production on an animated film is probably one of them. I think another gloss over the script, the storyboard, something could have done wonders to make this the true epic it could have been. I have to emphasize, this film is not terrible. It's just underwhelming. Kenji Kamiyama is a talented filmmaker whose other work, his 2002 Ghost in the Shell standalone complex TV series, for example, is unironically capital G great grown-up philosophical sci-fi that, no joke, predicted quite a bit of our modern society and played with meme culture before it was even really a thing, while still sporting a load of kick-ass fights. His 2009 Eden East TV series is a hilarious, thrilling work of magical realism concerning Japan's societal malaise, along with international tensions. And what probably brought us here was his 2007 Moribito, which has been globally praised as a fantasy war story that probably made Kamiyama the shoo-in for taking on a project like this. Now, to be fair, those are all TV series, and his feature-length films have tended to be a bit too big for their britches. Maybe that's what happened here? Who knows? It's not a walk through Mordor, but the Eagles couldn't stick a landing this go-around either. Worth watching for the visuals, but not recommended for the script. Watch it in Japanese without subtitles or something. Thank you so much for watching. I also want to thank those who left comments in the previous video, and you can feel free to leave some more comments below. I see that this movie already flopped at the box office, so this review feels almost pointless except for like an intellectual exercise and to push people to watch a literally 100-year-old German silent film. But I really do feel bad that this one flopped so hard because I think it actually has a lot of merit. I think that the visuals are outstanding, and there's clear effort put in the scripting. This wasn't just something that was churned out over a weekend, but it just lacked that polish that really sell it. And I also feel like, we're kind of sequeled out these days, aren't we? I feel like I didn't watch Rings of Power. I don't really care to. I haven't bought anything Star Wars since the sequel trilogy ended. For better or for worse, it just is, let stories end. And on that note, I'm gonna let this video end. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day. Peace.